All right, Charles. So you just passed the PMP a little while ago. How did you do, and how do you feel, man?
I did pretty good. I feel good about passing it. It was a pretty it was a hard road till I got to the PMP Master Prep course. You know, that made it a lot easier. I feel good about it. I scored above target in 2 out of 3 out of processes, people, and I got actually needs improvement on business knowledge. I think was the third one. So the smallest one. So that's something I just got to look into improvement. But compared to my last score that I took in December before the test change, that was a year of self-study and using another program, not exactly a competitor, but like another program that the Army had.
Right.
I scored in initiating initially, I scored above target. I scored below target in planning, monitoring, executing and monitoring and controlling, and I scored target in closing. So just looking back, you know, realizing that I needed to make a change, I found your program on YouTube. I was like, hey, there's a program out there that looks like me, that talks like me, very easy English to understand, you know, compared to my last one. And I dug deep into your PMP. I got the Accelerator and the, of course, the Master Prep class came with it. I dug into where I was weak first. I started with, I first saw you on a video on YouTube talking about just the planning process and scope. And I'm like, I can understand this now. So that's what I reviewed hard and heavy first. I just sat there. It just took me a month process from start to finish after purchasing the program, and went back to my old one. Saw where I was weak, saw that planning, how planning actually worked and was understand well. Did some practice tests. About 2 weeks before the test, I started doing the bigger test. I started first part of the week, I'd do 100. And then at the end of the week, I'd do a 200. And as I got closer and closer to the test that last week, I just would see specifically where I was weak at. So I'd see it. I got a 0% procurement. I'm like, okay. So I'd go back to the procurement specific questions, knock those out, understand it, go back to the Master Prep class. So a lot of self motivation there. There's no, of course, nothing's given to you. You know, you got to put the work in. But again, it's really the language that I understood and how it was presented. You know, just for an example, when I first learned this, it was basically the old class I took, actually late 2019. Basically, they were reading me the PMBOK. All right, there's this like PowerPoint animation, and it's just reading me knowledge areas out of the PMBOK, and I'm with the book following along, and I can't learn that way. So what I do for a living, you know, I'm an organizational developmental specialist and trainer. I focus on the adult learner. And I knew from the start it wasn't going to work for me, but I thought with a year of self-study, I could conquer it. No, I needed that good coaching, good explaining, the one-on-one sessions, the group sessions. That's how my adult learner journey goes. Not everybody's like that. There are some people that can, you know, just read the book and be fine with it. I even saw some videos out there that said you got to read the PMBOK book front to back 3 times. Like get out of here. And with the Master Prep, it gives you plenty of the basic understanding to pass the test. To really actually understand it, like I didn't know like planning actually went in order. When you were you know, like what? Because the way they was talking is like everything's connected here and there and there and there. It was like in the old test they were kind of trying to like make it look agile, but it really wasn't. It was very predictive and stuff. But yeah, it went on. One of my concerns was, I'll share this with the group, was the agile now portion of the test. In my experience between taking the old and the new, your course as it is right now makes it easy. Your Agile Made Easy, for lack of a better term, it really helped. And then I even took, my coach was Rui. I asked him for one more session the day before my test, and he did some one-on-one Agile with me, and we just broke down the questions. So that was cool.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome. So you have you have an interesting experience, like a couple different angles. Like you failed, it's okay. Like, and then you pass. So you have the perspective on being on both sides of the exam. So we can talk about that. You also come from a military experience. So you're learning, or kind of, you have a new vernacular or language to learn in a sense. And then also like you didn't know Agile, like, so you had to learn that. So let's start with the first one. Like when you took it from before into after, obviously you talked about the difference in the way you prepared, but right at the beginning, was the exam a ton different? Was it just content? Were the questions kind of the same? What was different about before and after?
It's a great question. So the first exam is very much oriented on the processes of each process group and understanding them in order, and then of course knowing terms. Like you would fail that first exam if you really didn't know what an issue log was or a change log. Okay. And it really hampered on the processes of it where, the way you prepare now in your course of study, the first question every coach asks you, where are you in the process?
Yeah.
And that actually is cool because it still helps in the next test. And I'm going to get to, bear with me here. I'll get to why. But it was very process centric in the original exam. The new exam is very leadership centric and engagement centric and decision centric. So there is, in the first exam, when you went to your project sponsor, a lot of times that was probably the right answer. But in the new one, it's very focused on, as the project manager, how are you going to make a decision and how are you going to handle the stakeholders? All right. Now, I don't know if exactly what you were asking me, but I definitely noticed it's more leadership oriented in the new exam, which is what Agile is. It's collaboration, it's leadership, it's making a decision, it's shorter stints, it's accepting a lot more risk. All right. The old exam is about like, here's the risk. All right. What do you do? And then it was always kind of confusing. Now, I will say this. Did I feel the test was easier? Yes, but it might be a misnomer because I was better prepared for this test because of the program. However, a lot of those multiple paragraph questions went away, multiple sentence questions, no more than 3 sentences, as I would say, for anything anymore.
That's good.
Or on the old test, I saw a lot of those.
Yeah, killers. Yeah, those long ones. Yeah.
Now,
so
go ahead.
That's great. That's awesome, man. And so like that leadership perspective and those things, it's more of a high level thinking about how are you strategically leading the team and building as you go. Now, a lot of our focus as we go through questions is all through like how you would take on this problem. Now, as you went through and learned the process for solving questions that we laid out, do you think that helped reframe your brain to get away from those like just memorize IDOs and stuff, like read the book 77 times and stuff? Like, how did that play into like your decision making and stuff?
Yep. So I think mostly through the, again, your Agile product that you got in the master prep classes is perfect. And the talk-throughs with that. When first off, the way you have it formulated now, where are you in the process? Even in Agile, you still got to know in the process, even though usually I noticed in the test, they tell you where you're at.
Yeah.
It's still good. All right. It seemed less tricky. Okay. It's really understanding when it comes down to it, it's really understanding terminology. Like, what is a backstory? Do you know what a backstory is? All right. Does this make sense?
Backlog. User story backlog. Yeah. I know.
Yeah. Sorry, I took another class. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you understand what an iteration is? All right. When they talk about the first start of your project is predictive, and now you guys are executing and it's going into a more iterative process. Do you understand what that really means? That's really it. And I think your course prepares you well. Whereas the previous course, it was like, if you didn't memorize if you didn't memorize what output went with which knowledge area in this thing, like where it makes a T.
Yeah.
And that's a lot to understand. This one kind of teeters away from that a little bit. It kind of expects you to know that already, because let's face it, what are most of your outputs? Project document updates.
Yeah, very true.
Right. Risk register update, lessons learned register, like it's the same repeating thing, but they kind of focused it too much on the last exam. This one's more realistic. I would think of how the adult learner thinks. So the other cool thing is I've been telling everybody is I had a friend, he's from Iraq, and he's taking this and he's worried that it's in English. He's here in the States, and I'm like, not in Arabic, but his dialect of Arabic, he's a little flawless. And I tell people, don't worry about it. It's actually written in the King's language of English.
Oh, okay.
So whatever fundamental English you've learned, it's in that fundamental language. Because remember, people from all over the country put this thing together, but it is very Webster's dictionary. I mean, they spell color and armor and all that correctly the American way, not like the Canadians. But the editor, I'm sorry, editor. But it's in the King's English. So if English is your second language and that's what you learn from a textbook, you'll understand. I think you'll understand.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So how long have you been out of the military, or are you still in? I can't remember.
No, I'm retired. I retired in officially February in 2020.
Okay. So you're fresh out, like recently out. Was it a big change to learn like non-military thinking? Like, I'm sure you guys speak in different terms. You like use different like routines and how you go through things. Was it difficult for you to learn, or how did you make the jump to like pick it up and nail the PMP with the terminology.
Yep. So initially when I, in late 2019, when I started looking at PMP, introduced it through the O2O program, it was a different language. It was a different English that I wasn't used to. And I struggled with that basically until I found your program. Like I said, I just saw you on a whim. I was looking at other stuff through YouTube, PMP questions, and there's Scott right there. I'm like, hey, this guy is talking in a language I understand, like, like a human, not like a technical manual, because that's really what PMBOK is. It's a technical manual, right? So written in like lawyer Greek, I don't know, but nobody talks like that. And then other things that helped me along as we were learning, through a transition process, we have every branch of the military has the, like we have the Soldier for Life transition period. We're building our resumes. There's some classes there that teach us like, you don't have to be so direct. I even had a college professor once when I wrote a paper, he told me my language is I didn't cuss in it, but he said the way I write is would be offensive to some people in some circles because it's very direct. It's very in order to do this. There's no beating around the bush, and so yes, that took me about a year to shake off, man, to be honest with you, but it got harnessed, I'm thinking of the PMP exam when I found your class, so a little shout out.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it. I mean, this is just like a conversation. So, I mean, like, that's like, I think the thing I'm interested in your adult learning kind of perspective as well. So let's transition into that. Cause I guess I'm a learning professional now. I mean, I run companies that teach people, but wasn't from like college degree or anything. But the thing that I've really realized is the more and more that I go, all right, what does this really mean? Just like, how can I say this to myself or my mom and make it make sense? The better things get. Like, if you can simplify it down and make it logical and relatable, things seem to resonate more with people. I don't know. We're going to lean more into it, but from your, like, what do you do in your regular life to make your classes engage with your students or whoever you're teaching? Like, what are some of the specific principles that work for the adult learner?
Okay. So just like you do, you gotta find a mean, right? A medium based on your population and stuff like that. So I work in the mechanical contractor industry. I'm an operations manager, but part of my job is to conduct training, whether it's truck drivers in the warehouse with 20 years of experience of just, slinging material, some with tradesmen, hard union tradesmen, on construction sites, you know what I mean? Some HVAC technicians, some office personnel, and that's all they've ever done. So it's finding that meaning, that understanding in their language, right? Well, first you have to find out what's a couple of things that everybody can understand and how does everybody fundamentally learn? So how do most adults fundamentally learn? They fundamentally learn kind of the same. There's exceptions and there's geniuses and everything, but the normal learner with your standard, let's just say high school graduation, high school degree or let's say 2 years of college, maybe a little bit of trade school, learns in a very simple format. They learn in what's the topic and what's in the topic. Now, the original PMBOK training and the guide kind of tries to do that, but it's just too rigid. None of them says in that book that like, hey team, this is it's time to put the project management plan together, right? For example, and there are the way you do it, there's 3 baselines that you got to know. All right. And this is what's in them. See how it's broken up, and you understand like, oh, those baselines are important. And by the way, those probably should never change. So looking ahead, when we do our evaluation on this, anything that says that these need to change, you probably really need to look at that question. Like most adult learners can say, okay, they look for flags like that because they want to get through it fast. All right. And then the rest is, so that's what you got to do. So like I just gave my warehouse manager a new Department of Defense class. So first you relate to them. Like we called it in the Army a motivator. I'm like, hey, one of our last truck drivers, man, just cost us $3,000 in fines. All right. And we're not going to happen again. And it's because it's not he's looking down. It's not because you failed. It's because we as a management team failed you. So now that I failed you, or even in your case, I've seen some of your videos like, hey, it's my fault that I didn't get this out to you people quick enough, just to your general commercial audience, well, I'm here now. Come on in. Yeah. It's kind of the same concept. And so now he's got the understanding, he knows. And now I'm going to put things into perspective that relates to him. Like, do you remember, this is what the law says. This is what it really means. here we go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The best example, and I know it's apple and oranges kind of, but like the John scenarios. John's like my hero. So like when in your master class, John helps the adult learner, right? You can see it, you can put it into perspective, and that's a great technique, because most adult learners eventually become visual learners, whether they know it or not. And so what I do, like in my case for the truck driver, I put the thing on the board. I throw a little YouTube on there of, you know, something bad happening on the road, and it helps absorb the information. So visual learning for the adult learner is almost key anymore. I mean, why do you think PowerPoint is the most used product in all of business anymore? It can't be boring, but if you can, actually put it to its full potential, you can actually captivate your audience. So PowerPoint's been the best product for Microsoft since it's ever been invented, honestly.
Yeah, and if used correctly, it can be really, really effective. Like the one thing, so I love I'm learning, dude. This is good. And so one of the things, so you said the John story, that's how I learned. Like I'm an adult learner, like just like you, like that's how I taught myself. And so this is what I've been doing for the past 2 weeks. I've redone a lot of the videos in the Accelerator to like clean them up, make them tighter and better. And one of the reasons is that I wanted to bring the case story in so that like, as we go through waterfall, that whole thing where you say like, hey, we're in planning now, we need to develop this. And there's these 3 things, they break down. I'm walking them literally through the entire journey so that they can go like, you're right here, visually see where you are. Now let's drop in. Now let's watch the John story. He does his little stuff. We come back, we talk about it. So like so instead of having go 2 places, they're in one place and they go through now. That's one major change that we've made. I think that aligns with what you're talking about. The other thing is I changed the way the slides are organized. They're all dark background slides, which I was like watching something on YouTube where they were like, why is the end of a movie credits on a black screen with white type? Because it makes it pop. And so instead of it being inverse where you're like, it just makes a big difference. So I took it, I don't know how many hours, and switched it. So hopefully that's even more effective now for the visual learner, and give them only one point at a time to focus on.
Hey, who narrates the John movies?
Well, okay. Thank you for asking. That was like one of our employees way back. So Ashley, way back. We didn't know anything about video production. We didn't know anything about recording. She recorded those in her car on her cell phone. So
really?
Yeah, so we are going into another round where we're going to have either me or a professional guy.
I apologize to your editor again, but she sounded pretty hot. So I was like,
Oh, come on. You can't say that on this. I don't want to edit this. Jesus. She's a very competent worker and awesome. And dude, like building those, like it was a testament to kind of like the project management, because we were like, hey, we don't know how to do this, but we got this vision. Can you help us? And she was like, yeah, I think I can do it. She went out and researched it. She planned it. She was pushing back on me being like, yo, we have to do this structure. I don't know, man. And that got us on the road. So we really, really kudos to her for getting us out there and getting us going. So that's awesome. Yeah. Cool. So now that you have why did you do it to begin with? Like, what was in it for you, PMP?
So what's in it for me? So when I started, it took me almost 20 years to graduate college. I started after high school back in '97, but it was always a continuing goal for me, right? Even majored in I was a music major at first. And then about 10 years into the Army, I realized where my talent was. It took a long time to really find myself, and I knew the Army couldn't last forever. So I earned my degree from the University of Louisville in organizational leadership and learning and development. And when I learned about, just in my coursework throughout the years, and it took, like I said, it took me, with combat and world war and terror going on, it was like one class a semester, you know what I mean? So it took forever. But in remembering stuff, when I came across one of my project management classes and learned about this PMP thing, first I probably heard about it like 7 years ago or 8 years ago or something like that. I was like, hey, that's nice. I don't really ever want to do any other degree again, but this certification, this industrial certification, which looks like a master's program in itself, because it's enough learning. It's really the equivalent of a master's program. It's like, I think that'll be my next professional goal.
That's cool.
And as I got closer to retirement, I'm like, shit, that could really help me in the market. faith, things changed. I didn't get hired because I had a PMP, but my boss knew what it was. We have a project management core here, and he wanted that way of thinking, and he knew I was studying it. So I kind of use it as a bargaining chip. And he's been supportive ever since here at our company, and I finally got it. He even gave me the week off, that last week of the test off. He let me work from home so that I could do that last portion of the accelerator that last week, and I rolled right in that last portion right into the test on Saturday. Awesome. So I kind of squished it 7 days down into 5, but it was all right.
That's pretty fun. That's cool. All right. So okay, you've given us a lot. Like, so if someone's out there, maybe they come from the same background as you, they might be in the service now or just recently out. They want to get it, maybe failed before, maybe not, but they're struggling. What should they do? Like, what should be the process of thinking and acting? How can they like clean it up and actually get to the finish line in a relatively reasonable time?
First they have to do some self-discovery. Is it for you or not? Because really the certification is not for everybody. It's not for every field. Is where you're going and what you want to be, is this really what you want to do? Because you do got to put some time in it, correct? No matter if you get the PMP master class or you get one of your competitors, or if you just use the O2O, or if it's just something you want, you got to realize if it's for you. If you want to go be a pipe fitter and tradesman, I don't see why you would need it unless you have a future to be a project manager in construction. You know what I mean? So first see if it's for you, because you're going to have to commit to it. And that's the number one thing. You have to commit to it. If you're going to do it, first off, I can speak on behalf of the military. Like I did mine out of Fort Drum initially, but I know there's little different programs all over the place. Take a deep look at the program and ask yourself, knowing what you know about yourself, is this enough education for me to be successful to get this certification? In my case, it was not, and I'm not downing the program whatsoever. There have been a couple people that I know of that went through their program and came out successful, but those were like, everybody else has put money into further education. Like I went to your course. My other friend, he did another course. I don't even remember what it's called, but
no big deal.
You let me borrow the book,
There you go.
at one time. And so see what works for you there. And then 3, I guess, how can you take that? And this is for the transitioning, specifically for the transit. How do you take that based on leadership? Because that's really what it is. It's a business / leadership test. How can you take that once you get the certification to make you more competitive out there? What have you done? So we call projects in the military operations. Right? Sure. How do you translate that to work for you on your resume further on down the road? All right.
Yes.
But ultimately, that first question, is this worth my time and effort?
Yeah. That's great advice. I think if somebody follows that, they're gonna like setting back and realizing, like, is this for me? First of all, they can do something that is for them. If it's not, no big deal. But if it is, it kind of refines them and sets a North Star to be like, hey man, yeah, this is for me. I know why it's worth it. I can put the time in. And if you're from the military, you're already like into like setting a goal, attacking it, pushing towards. So nothing new there. So I love the advice, man. Really good. So this will not be the last time we talk. It was great. You did amazing. We're really proud of you. And let's stay in touch. And I'm sure there's plenty of things we can continue to learn from you. So thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you. You have a good day.
Yes, sir.